Our country is at war, a war declared against us by the rulers of international communism.
Karl Marx believed capitalism requires infinite growth is a common refrain of anti-Marxists and anti-socialists. They use it to argue Marx did not understand capitalism. The problem with this canard is that, well, it misunderstands and misrepresents Marx. Karl Marx's critique of capitalism represents one of the most penetrating examinations of the economic system that dominates much of the global economy. At the heart of his analysis is the dynamic of capital accumulation, a process that necessitates growth within the capitalist system. Contrary to some interpretations, Marx did not posit that capitalism requires or sustains infinite growth. Instead, he offered a complex view of the capitalist system as one driven to expand, but inevitably constrained by its internal contradictions. Capitalism, as Marx observed, is underpinned by a fundamental necessity to accumulate capital. This process is propelled by the pursuit of profit, which capitalists reinvest in production to generate more profit. The competitive market structure further exacerbates this dynamic, with individual capitalists striving to outdo one another, innovate, and reduce costs, thereby fostering a cycle of growth and reinvestment. This cycle is intrinsic to the capitalist mode of production, in Marx's view, and it is this systemic imperative to grow that is often misconstrued as an argument for infinite growth. Marx's analysis of the capitalist system is far more nuanced than it requires infinite growth. He identified the cyclical nature of economic crises endemic to capitalism, such as recessions and depressions, which expose the system's inherent instabilities. These crises arise from the very dynamics that drive growth, including the tendency of the rate of profit to fall over time and the problem of overproduction, where the market becomes saturated with goods that cannot be profitably sold. Marx theorized that these crises were not mere aberrations, but were rooted in the fundamental workings of capitalism itself. They illustrate that there are indeed limits to growth within the capitalist system, limits that arise from the internal tensions and contradictions of the system. The falling rate of profit, for example, is a consequence of capitalists' efforts to increase productivity, often through technological innovation, which can lead to a reduction in labor input relative to capital input, and consequently, a decline in profit rates, since Marx viewed labor as the source of value. The problem of overproduction points to another boundary to capitalist growth: the finite nature of markets. As production capacity expands, often outstripping demand due to various factors including wage stagnation and wealth inequality, capitalists find fewer opportunities for profitable reinvestment. This mismatch between production and consumption capacity can lead to economic downturns, challenging the notion of perpetual growth. Marx's anticipation of the transformative pressures on capitalism arising from these limitations is crucial. He believed that the system's inability to perpetually expand would eventually lead to its radical transformation. This belief underscores his expectation that the contradictions of capitalism would not be resolved within the capitalist mode of production itself, but would instead precipitate a change to a different socio-economic structure. Thus, Marx's perspective on capitalism was not that it was capable of infinite growth, but that its expansionary nature would eventually clash with material, social, and economic boundaries. This clash would create conditions ripe for transformative change. The misinterpretation of Marx's view as an endorsement of the idea that capitalism requires infinite growth overlooks the critical and dialectical nature of his analysis. This distinction is important because it defines the fundamental nature of Marx's argument. His work suggests that while the capitalist system is driven to grow, it is also destined to confront limits that challenge its very foundations, potentially leading to its overhaul or replacement by a different system altogether. Marx's vision invites a continuous re-examination of capitalist dynamics, emphasizing the need to understand growth not as a linear and unlimited trajectory, but as a complex process fraught with tensions that could either be the undoing of capitalism or the catalyst for its evolution. At least in the true Marxist conception.
We'd like to be free, to enjoy the economic well-being, the liberties that are ours under God. But unfortunately, that's not our lot. Unfortunately, communism